Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ask a Death Doula. We are doing the Good Death podcast series. I'm so excited. Yes, the Good Death book is fast approaching in its release date. If you have not pre-ordered your copy yet, please get it. The Good Death book is like the what to expect when you're expecting for the opposite end of life, and every family should have this book. So when you pre-order one copy today, you get a free ticket to the masterclass. It's going to be on March 22nd, an all-day event. I don't want to give spoiler alerts, but it's going to be amazing. So that is a free ticket. You don't want to miss that. Grab your book, get your free ticket, and we'll see you there. Okay, today we are going to be talking about what is a healthcare proxy, the incorrect verbiage being used about healthcare proxies, and how do you pick one? This is so incredibly important. And so if you don't know, welcome to this episode because this can change everything for you. So sit back, get a cup of tea, relax, and enjoy the episode. Oh, good evening, everyone. Welcome. So glad to see you here. Welcome to the Good Death Seminar Series. Can you believe it's number 4? I have chills. I just got chills. It has been an amazing seminar series. And by the way, they stand alone. So if you come to just one, you're going to walk away with so much value. And I'm so honored that you are giving me your time because I know that's your most valuable commodity. So thank you for being here. Before we jump in, if you could jump into the chat, if you'd like to say hello, where you're from. We have people from all over. Darla said it's my first time. Yay. Thank you. And welcome, Darla. Yes, Arden is here. Beautiful. Nikki is here. You guys are coming in really fast now. Leanne, Suzanne, Julia, Martina, Carly, Helen, Patty, Susan, MJ, welcome. Ray is here. Karen is here. Oh my goodness, guys, you're from everywhere. This is amazing. And we have okay, great. You guys are going so fast. Thailand is in the house, and we saw beautiful pictures of Thailand. Thank you so much for being here. Toronto, Canada is in the house. Obviously, the US is in the house. Thank you so much. Hello, hello, and welcome. It's such a beautiful thing. So one of the things that is so important that we understand is how we're all tied to this beautiful thing called humanity. And one of our greatest awarenesses of that is end of life, right? Because it doesn't matter who you are and what you look like and how much you have or don't have and where you live in the world. And it's time that we bring back that awareness more than ever, as far as I'm concerned. And so lots of times we'll talk about, is it interesting that we're doing this awareness through talking about the end of life? But it's not, because when we're talking about end of life, we're talking about life. They're not separate of one another. There's this big, beautiful gift. And I want to share with you just my background, what I've learned to help you to navigate this space, and hopefully also give you pearls about life as well. So what we're going to do now, without further ado, we're going to get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quiet the chat, and then we're going to do some interactive things. So there's going to be times that I am going to ask you some questions and then ask you to put in the chat different things that you want to answer. So if you just give me 1 second, because I want to make sure this chat is everything we want it to be. Great. Okay. So we're going to quiet the chat a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to open it up. So welcome. Without further ado, I am going to share my screen, and then we are going to start the presentation. And then, of course, I'm going to be happy to answer your questions when we get to that part, and all of the goodness that goes along with this journey. So I am going to make that screen big. And if you could see the Good Death Seminar Series with the Doula Giver tree, just give me a little hand wave. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So this is the Good Death Seminar Series by Doula Givers Institute. And this is number 4, as I shared before, and it's titled Healthcare Proxies. We're going to talk about healthcare proxies. So I'm going to tell you about what you can expect in this seminar tonight. And I just want to share, in my experience, the verbiage being used to describe the role of a healthcare proxy is incorrect. This and many different names for this role are causing great confusion. And when people are confused, they don't take action. So I want to give you clarity around this space. And I also want to tell you what is really important for you to know when you are choosing a healthcare proxy. And of course, the importance of choosing one. So before we jump in, as I said, this is number 4, and these are live events. These are not recorded. They're live. We do them, but they stand alone. So what I wanted to also say, and I'm sorry that I forgot, we have a workbook for you. It was emailed to you. If you didn't get that, I'm going to open up the chat again for just 1 minute for you all, so that if you didn't get the workbook and you want to grab that, we're going to put that in the chat. And so Nicholas Infante, if you could put that in the chat for everyone so we could do that, that would be fantastic. So that if you don't have that, again, you don't need the workbook for this. You're going to be able to review it later. But if you don't have it, we have a great workbook that is amazing. So we want you to take advantage of that. Okay. So now I'm going to quiet the chat again. And if you have questions, let us know. Just letting some more people in, some beautiful people that were a little late, which is fine. So like I said, this is number 4. And so what I want to do is do a very quick overview of number 1, number 2, and number 3. Number 1, we started with, we just forgot. That was really about it. And what this is the seminar discussing how did we get to a place in our world where death is the number 1 fear? How did we get to a place, and I often think of this, but I also at the very beginning of my nursing career thought about how in the world did we ever get to a place that something that we all are going to go through, that is a very natural experience, becomes so feared, removed, and the number 1 fear in the world? And it really comes down to this: we just forgot. We just forgot, and it's time to bring that back, because not only for the preparation and what's important, just from a practical standpoint of what you can put in place and the choices you want to make, but for the teachings, the sacred teachings that death allows us to understand, how much more similar we are than different, how there is a much bigger picture going on in this journey, and how it's really important to get back to those basics, what I call universal laws, to help us actually evolve in humanity. No judgment, that we have a human and a being part of us, that we have a soul self, that there's common things that people at the end of life will share. And one of the things that they share is that there is no death, that there is a continuation. So when you work in this space and you're honored to be having these experiences, it's so important at a time when death is the number 1 fear in the world to share what many people before they leave are saying, and they say it from all over the world. So that seminar was really about that we just forgot, and bringing back the awareness that death is not a medical experience, it's a human one, and that is a sacred, natural experience and can go really, really well with the right education and support. Seminar number 2 was talking about the hospice gap. And there's never anything we do here that is judging. We don't judge, we don't fault, but what we do is make very clear observations about where we were, where we are now, and what we need to do to move forward in a really positive, beautiful way. And you're probably well aware of the healthcare system. You're also well aware of the aging demographic globally. And unfortunately, hospice care, and there was an amazing presentation on it, how it developed, how it became a for-profit in the United States. And with that Medicare reimbursement of hospices in the United States that started in 1987, became that every hospice was going to get paid through this government reimbursement, and it turned into a for-profit and more of a business focus. And with that, the patient became very much secondary. And I'm not faulting anyone. I'm just saying what is happening in the structure of the system is that there's use gaps. So this is really important for everyone to understand, because by the time families usually learn this, what hospice does and what they do not do is when they're in it. And when they're in it, it's too late. So just in a very short, brief statement, hospice is a beautiful model of care. It's a holistic model of care. That's how it was created. The reimbursement structure, unfortunately, changed that, where it's still the theory that they want, but the unfortunate part is that the hospice nurse is supposed to teach the loved ones how to do the care, because most people want to be at home. 98% of the care is done by family caregivers. And if I'm only there for 1 hour as a hospice nurse once a week, how can I possibly share the teachings with this family? it's not going well. There's huge gaps in the system. Death doulas are helping to fill that gap, and this education is helping to fill it as well. And then number 3 was advanced directives. And we talk about those documents, and we talk about the misunderstanding of them not being legally binding. So most people think that they're legally binding, and there's some loopholes there, which we'll dive into a little bit tonight. I'm going to let you know that. So if you miss that, that's fine. But an advanced directive is, again, think about what it's saying. I'm directing you in my advanced stages. So it's thinking about what I would want or not want for advanced care, and also knowing the loophole there, and then what you need to know to ensure that your wishes are going to be honored, and making them actually a legally in medical order that has to be followed, which is really exciting. And if I may, I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. If you are new here, welcome. We are so happy to have you. And if you are back, thank you for coming back. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. I am a registered nurse by trade. I'm a former hospice, which is end-of-life care nurse, and oncology, which is cancer care nurse. I have over 20 years of experience working at the bedside of over 1,000 end-of-life patients from all around the world. And I have been honored to train over 350,000 family caregivers to care for the dying. That is incredible. I have a lot of knowledge in this space, and I want to share it with you. And so if I may, this picture that is on the screen, that was in Zimbabwe. I was doing a volunteer hospice trip in Zimbabwe. That's Tando. She was a nurse there who taught me so much about the power of our presence. And it was really on that trip that solidified that, oh my goodness, death is not a medical experience, and that you can care for somebody at the end of life with no medicine, no equipment, if you know what's happening, and it can go really well. So there's lots of that learning that I have been honored to get from just different people around the world. And my why am I here? Why would I take the night, put a presentation for free together? Why is that important? Because we can't go back and do end of life again. And I unfortunately have seen so much suffering and continue to see so much suffering that's needless. Now, there's going to be pain that we have when we say goodbye to that physical person, of course, but I'm seeing it be 1,000 to 10,000 times more difficult for patients and families because of the lack of this information. And so from the very beginning, I said, if I can help one family have the good death, have a better end of life, it's a win. And now we're able to help hopefully so many more. But this is why, because we can't go back and do it again. And I have this background. I want to share it with you. What you're going to learn tonight is you're going to understand what a healthcare proxy is and the importance. You're going to recognize the incorrect verbiage often associated with healthcare proxies. You're going to learn how to select the best healthcare proxy for your needs. And we're also going to explore options if you don't have anyone to appoint as your healthcare proxy. This is a big issue. I remember the first death cafe that I held in New York City in 2017. We had multiple people in their 60s and 70s, and every one of them was so full of anxiety because they didn't have any family. They didn't have anyone that's going to care for them at the end of life. And that's a real issue. So we want to share with you that if you don't have anyone that you feel you can appoint as a healthcare proxy, we may have some solutions for you. Okay. Part number 1 is, what is a healthcare proxy? A healthcare proxy allows you to designate someone to make medical decisions on your behalf. Now, in parentheses, I put that you have already chosen, and that is key. We're going to go over that again. If you're unable to do that for yourself, this can be due to physical limitations, cognitive limitations, and you know as well as I do, when we don't feel well, can we really advocate for ourselves? I don't think so. All we're trying to do is be okay. Now, I want to point out a few things. In the literature that you will probably find everywhere about what a healthcare proxy is, it will say a healthcare proxy is the person that makes medical decisions for you if you're not able to. And that is incorrect. And that's when I say the verbiage is wrong. Why do I say that? Because they're not making medical decisions for you. They're speaking the decisions that you've already made. And there's a huge difference there. And we're going to really unpack that as we go on tonight. It's the difference in everything here. So we want to make sure that you understand that. And so again, I put my in the parentheses that you've already chosen, because anywhere that you look, it's going to say a healthcare proxy is the person that you designate to make medical decisions for you if you're not able to. And that causes a lot of problems in the world, and it's incorrect. So we're going to unpack it. Now, the other thing that is causing great confusion, just to add on here, in the United States, there are several different terms for healthcare proxy, and this may be in other places of the world as well. They are also known in the US as healthcare surrogates. They are also known as healthcare power of attorneys, and that's a big one that really makes people confused. They're called medical power of attorneys or healthcare agents. So sometimes people will say to me, no, I have that. And they mean they have a power of attorney. This is very different. When you have a healthcare power of attorney, it's just for your medical. It has nothing to do with your financial or any of that thing of that. But people, again, are a little bit feared and confused. And so when I'm talking with families, they say, no, we have a healthcare power of attorney. It's our power of attorney. They're very different things. And that's where that is a dangerous name to call it. So we're going to call it healthcare proxy for really strong clarity. But I want you to know that if you hear healthcare surrogate, healthcare power of attorney, medical power of attorney, or healthcare agent, it means the same thing. So let's have a discussion. I want to take the temperature of the group here. So I want to ask you a few questions, but the first one is, how many of you, and again, there's never any judgment here, we're here to support and learn. How many of you here tonight have a healthcare proxy? I'm going to open up the chat, and I want you to just put a yes or a no in the chat, depending on, so we want everyone to be able to see this. Do you have one? And again, perfectly fine if you don't, perfectly amazing if you do. Yep. So we have a good combination. Yeah. A lot of no's, and I love that. And I want you to know how much I love that. And I really want you to know, I thank you for putting that in here. Because I want you to know hopefully by the end of this tonight. Okay, great. And it seems to be going to me directly. So we want to be able to make sure that everyone, okay, I think you can see now. So there was a lot of no's as I'm switching it on and off. Good yeses too. So that's wonderful. Okay, working on finalizing that. Thank you, Rosanna. Yeah, beautiful. Love it. Okay. Yes, but it's out of date. Okay, Holly, that's great, because we'll go over what's recommended for keeping it there as well. Okay, beautiful. Love it. So a lot of no's, and that's a really good thing. So okay, thank you for that. And let me go to the next screen. And this is another important one. So give me a minute to read it, and then I'm going to want your answers. How many of you have a loved one that has chosen their health proxy? How many of you know your loved one's choices? And let's see what we have here. I think we're getting about the same mix. A lot of no's now. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay, great. Yeah. All right. It's almost like a mixed one, even yes and no. And this is critically important, because who's it going to fall on when we show up to care, which is one of the most important things we can do. It's going to call on us. So we want to make sure that we have this discussion with our loved ones. Beautiful, guys. Thank you so much. And we all know how difficult this space is, right? So it is a difficult space, but a little bit of uncomfortable and doing the work now saves you, I promise you this, 10,000 times suffering for your families and for you later on. So when you are caring for these beautiful people in your family and knowing what they want, you can step right into that role and advocate for them. It's a no-brainer. It makes your situation with grief and bereavement so much easier, because you're taking yourself and you're doing actions that support them in their wishes. And that is really healing and really healthy. So that's a really important one. Now, let's talk about becoming familiar with the terminology and the verbiage, which I had talked about. And I need this to sink in for you. There's incorrect verbiage. And why is it important that you walk away tonight with understanding this? Because when you ask somebody to be your healthcare proxy, this needs to be really clear to them. It really helps to make the right match. It also is really important for them when they're making the choices as well. So again, I'm not a betting woman with money, but I would say that if you Google this after tonight and you said, okay, what is the definition of a healthcare proxy? Mr. Google, Dr. Google, whoever is going to come up and it's going to say a healthcare proxy is the person that makes medical decisions for you. And that's really important that we flush this out, because this incorrect verbiage is causing incredible amount of stress for people. It's causing resistance for people, and clarifying these ensures clear communication and understanding of what the role of the healthcare proxy truly is and can benefit not only you, but your healthcare proxy, and picking one that's beautiful. Okay, let's go ahead, and I want to talk to you about Anne. So there is a woman, and this was a death cafe and if you don't know what a death cafe is when I'm mentioning this, please let me explain. It's a global movement that simply was started by a sociologist. It made the front of the New York Times in 2013, about having these cafe discussions that allow people to simply get together and talk about death. Because we're not as a society. And that started in 2006 and then went to London and then got picked up and came to America. And then here it is. And it's all over now. It's a global movement. But I met this woman, Anne, at a New York City one. So I went to one of the first ones in New York City. And she said she was, a little bit older with her husband. It was just the two of them, no children. She said, Suzanne, I'm terrified. His healthcare proxy, they were both healthy at the time. His healthcare proxy, and I don't know if I can do it. I think about this all the time. I am just so nervous. I'm going to make a wrong decision and I don't think I can do it. They had never had this discussion about him choosing exactly what he wants and asking her, are you comfortable with what I chose? And do you think you would be comfortable at sharing this with the medical team? Because here's the truth, is that a healthcare proxy does not need to be a relative. And we're going to go through what makes a really good one and what doesn't. But this woman now had so much anxiety over this, and she should have never been put in this position, because I could tell that she was not there. She was not comfortable with it, no matter what it was. But she was under the impression that now she was going to have all these choices that she was going to have to make, and she didn't know if she was going to make the right one. As a healthcare proxy, you are not making medical decisions for someone. You are communicating the decisions that they've already made, and that is called a living will. So a living will is part of the advance directive. An advance directive is two parts. It has a living will, which would say what you would want or not want for end-of-life care. And then it also has a healthcare proxy. The person that you have chosen and has agreed to speak your wishes for you that you've already chosen in the circumstance that you can't speak for yourself. So this should all be crystal clear and all really in a good alignment. So let's talk about choosing your healthcare proxy, and let's talk about key considerations for it. So selecting the right person as your healthcare proxy is crucial. Why? I want to tell you this right now, and there's no judgment here. It is not always easy to not stand up, but to share with doctors your opinion or what somebody wants, and they're running in and out of the room, and sometimes they have their own thoughts about what should happen. And I will say this does come up several times when somebody is nearing that last phase of life and they've had an illness or something's going on, and they've had the talk with their families about, I just want to go home. Like at a certain point, I want to be home with my loved ones and have comfort measures and symptom management, which is like a 2 hands up for me. When they're in the throes of the doctor trying to reverse it and it's not going well, and when the family says, you know what, we just want to go home, it's not always met with a clear, okay, that's what we'll do. And I just know that doctors are so busy. They see so many patients. They're under so much stress too, that when we are advocating, we're trying to advocate for our loved ones for what they want. Number one, you've got to catch the doctor. So that's a first one that you want to make sure that and we're going to give you a secret tool how to make sure that this is already in the records in a bit here. So stay with me. But if you're working with a family and they have your family and you have the doctor coming in and out and things are happening, They do rounds for 5 minutes sometimes for the whole day in the hospital. You've got to catch them. You've got to be able to get them if you're going to ask them to change or advocate for the wishes. So the key considerations is, number one, who you're choosing is 100% comfortable with what you're choosing. So let me give you an example. If I was choosing, and I am, by the way, so you're all my honorary healthcare proxies here. When quality of life is not there for me, and I can't reverse a situation, and I can't speak to my loved ones, and I can't do anything for myself, I don't want my life extended, meaning that I don't want measures like breathing tubes or feeding tubes keeping me alive, because we know how to do that, by the way, when there's no quality there. So what I would want to make sure is that my family knows that and knows why, because that to me would be just an awful situation, and it would be an awful situation for them as well. And so being clear on that if that was ever the case, then I would want to be kept comfortable and be at home and have my end of life as gently and lovingly as possible. If that is not something that my family member agrees with and says, oh, hold on, no, I can't. Nope, I can't. I can't just say that. Like if the doctor says, because we've had this happen, the doctor, and I told this on one of these seminars, is that there was a family that had an adult daughter and an adult son, and the mother had a very severe stroke to the point where damage was done, permanent damage. She couldn't eat for herself. She couldn't speak. She couldn't do anything for herself. And the doctor came in one day. She was in rehab. And he comes in the room and he says, I need to put a feeding tube in your mom or she's going to die, and walks out of the room. And the son and the daughter were just panicked. And that's what it would come to. She couldn't eat and they needed to put a feeding tube in to keep her alive. And so no advance directive, no discussion prior that they had all been part of. And they both remembered the mother picking different things. The son said, I remember her saying if she was in this kind of position, she would not want anything to extend her life. And the daughter was like, no, I remember that she does want things. And again, your fear comes up at that moment as well. And so what I want to say to you, and that situation did not work out well. They did put the feeding tube in, and the mother was, they said that every time the nurse came in to put the feed in the tube, she would pull and moan and act like she was in so much pain. She wasn't in physical pain. She didn't want that. And the son, after quite a few days, said, I can't stay here. I have to leave. And after about another week, they said the daughter understood that her mom didn't want it and then asked the doctor to take it out. The doctor said, I can't. She can't go through another surgery. So the mother died. The son and the sister and the brother do not talk. So this can avoid lots of that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that if my wish went very much against what my daughter, what my son was able to, if they were like, I don't think I could tell the doctor that we don't want a feeding tube, even though I said it, that should not be put on them. So you really want to make sure that somebody understands. And what I really want to say to you is when you're making choices, don't just share your choice, share your why. Why is that important to me? Because the most loving thing, and I always bring this back to families when there are disagreements and when it's all very intense, I often will say the most loving thing we can do right now is support your mom and what she would want. And I know, and I also acknowledge that that can be the hardest thing you do, because if it doesn't agree with you, but it's what your mom wants, the most loving thing we can do is support her. But for her to share her why really allows us to say, okay, she knows she doesn't want to be living in that kind of a circumstance. So the individual should be comfortable with your healthcare choices and be willing to advocate for them with medical professionals. Not always an easy thing, by the way. So you want to make sure that they're super comfortable with that and make sure that you tell your why. So who makes a really good healthcare proxy? Somebody who's trustworthy, somebody who's aligned with your wishes and understands it. Ideally, somebody whose proximity is in your location. And why is that important? Because if they need to go to the hospital, they need to wait for that doctor to do rounds. It's helpful for them to physically be close. It needs to be somebody by law who's 18 years or older. They need to be willing to act under pressure because, yes, it's going to be an intense moment. Now, we usually we'll pick proxies that are close to us, right? So they also are going to be dealing with the moment that you're in the place that you're in. So somebody who has that gift that can work under pressure, and it's not for everyone. So there's no judgment here, but we just want to make sure. So we know that it does not need to be a family member. And we also know that these are the really important parts of how you pick a healthcare proxy. Now, who should not be a healthcare proxy? Who does not make, and there's no judgment. Anyone who's not comfortable with your choices. So again, I felt terrible for that woman. She had been, who knows how long, she had been sitting with anxiety about being her husband's healthcare proxy and not sure that she could do it. That's an awful position to be in. So that should not be it. And it also cannot be somebody who is, if you're in a long-term care facility that works there, they don't want that. The most important thing right now is that you choose somebody who is super comfortable and aligned with your why. Don't ever choose somebody, and don't put a family member under that kind of pressure if they're not comfortable, because they're going to be dealing with the intensity of this moment as is. Let's not add anything to that for them. All right. So now if you have a pen and a paper, I'd like you to take a few minutes and do a little personal work that I'm going to ask of you. I want you to think for a minute. I want you to reflect on the people in your life, your personal network, friends, colleagues, maybe the other doulas, because we know we have a lot of doulas here, who would be a good candidate for you to have as a healthcare proxy. I want you to put that down for a minute. And I want you to think about the pros and the cons of each potential person. So I want you to just take a couple of minutes and do that if you would right now, and then we'll go on. Just stream of consciousness, put down some names. And this will help some of you who don't have a healthcare proxy right now, just to start thinking about people. Maybe it's somebody in your church or religious organization. Maybe it's in some of these social groups that you're in. Just start thinking in terms of that. And it's always recommended to have two, so that if one is scuba diving in Hawaii, I always use that under the water. It's always good to have a backup. So it's great to have more is better. So just think about that and start putting those names down, and then we'll flush a little bit of that out towards the end. Okay, let's come back to the room. What if I don't have someone? What about all these people that were at my death cafe? It was 2017. And I said at that moment, wow, we've got to find a way to have people be able to fill in this space of caring for these people at the end of life, but also being their healthcare proxies if possible. Like, this is a big issue. So what if I don't have someone? You know, we have so many people in this world that don't have their own children. And by the way, it's not always a guarantee that it can be your own child for multiple reasons. Maybe what we just shared, that it's not resonating and aligned with them. Maybe it's too much. Maybe they don't live in the same area or country for whatever reasons. And there's never any judgment here. So let's talk about possibilities if that is the case. Well, I want to let you know something, that we're going to explore alternatives. And this is something that I've had in mind for a very long time, for a few years, pretty much since that moment with everyone in 2017. If you don't have a family member or a friend that you can appoint, I want you to consider this. In the future, we're going to be doing what you call doula giver healthcare proxy mixers. This is for networking with potential proxies. Now, stay with me on this for a minute. If you might have heard of the term of speed dating, well, this is going to be interactive mixers for potential healthcare proxies. And what it's going to do is bring people to these events that are very comfortable in this space. So I want you to know that if you don't, I just want to give you a moment, and I want to really give you a warm hug around this. Because if you're somebody who didn't know what they're going to do, I want you to know that this is going to be available, and we're going to work on this, and it's going to be something in the future. So stay in touch with us and stay on point, but we're going to have these. And so we'll have them in different locations. They won't be a big lift. We'll be able to have them online. We'll be able to hopefully have them sometimes in person. And then you can hopefully find a beautiful match that would be yours. And then it would be nice exchange energetically for you to be theirs if that works out as well. So that is one really important idea. The other thing you can do is you can look into, support groups that you are in your neighborhood. I mean, in your local area. But I also will say that this topic, because death has not been talked about, it's really new for a lot of people, all this information. So I think you're going to have a lot more success when you have a group that is talking about end of life, is educating, understands what these things are. So let's run down the legal considerations and understanding about the advanced directives and about your healthcare proxy. Preparing legal documents, you want to know how to make them legally binding medical order. And I know that this was an incredibly powerful awareness that was found out on the job. So if I may, I want to share a story with you when I was in the oncology unit. And obviously in the oncology unit, you have all different types of circumstances going on. You have people with new diagnoses of cancer. You have people that they're crashing from chemo, what you call crashing from chemo. People, cancer has spread, and people at the end of life. And this woman and her family, she had stage 4 cancer. She was an elderly woman. She had cancer all over. And they had an advanced directive, which is, again, not always common. I think 32% of people in the United States have them. And this family had one. And they said, they done all these surgeries and chemotherapy, and she was really advanced. And her family said, it's time. We're going to take her home. And the doctor said, no. We have more things that we can try. And the family said, no, we have an advanced directive. It's signed, it's notarized. It says what she wants. She wants to go home. We're taking her home. And the doctor was like, no. And so now I was an oncology nurse at this moment. And so I thought, how is the doctor able to override that? And so I ended up having to call it was in New York State. So I had to call the highest level of attorneys for advanced care planning in Albany. And they said, oh yeah, no, the laws on the doctor can do that. The laws on the doctor's side. I said, okay, wait a minute. An advanced directive says it's a legal document. It's signed and it's witnessed. And you're telling me that the doctor can come in here and decide what he or she wants to do and the laws on the doctor's side? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, so what does this family do? You know what they told me? I hope you're all sitting down. They said, you can tell the family to get a restraining order from the doctor. And I was like, okay. So you've got a family that's dealing with their loved one close to the end of life, wants to just take them home, and you're telling me to go tell them to go file a restraining order against the doctor. Okay, that makes no sense to me. And so after uncovering all of this, the actual reason that advanced directives were created was to protect the doctor. So this is really important to understand because we want to know what we can do to make sure that we lock in our wishes. So the advanced directive form, the irony here is that it was created for the doctor so that if the doctor followed what your wishes were, the family can't sue them. So the law is always going to be on the doctor's side no matter what, because they just say, well, I didn't agree with that. And they trump it. And I'm not getting political. So we do have a way for you to ensure that your wishes are going to be known. But when you're going to do your advanced directive, you want to make sure that, and again, there's another step to ensure that it's going to become a legal medical order. But for doing your advanced directive, they're state sensitive. So you want to, the easiest way to do it is go to your Department of Health for your state that you're in, because some states want them to be just witness and some states want them to be witnessed and notarized. So just to make sure you're following protocol, that's what you want to do. But there's another step that we're going to take here. I want to reiterate that understanding the importance of having an advanced directive and understanding that advanced directives are not foolproof. The doctor has the final say and the law is on the doctor's side. You want to make sure to switch over your advanced directive to what is called a POST form when you're eligible. So POST is a nationwide form in the United States that stands for a physician order life-sustaining treatment. They're only eligible at this time. They're starting, I think, to change it. I think California made it a little bit more inviting that you can do them earlier. But for the most part, in general, POST forms can be initiated when there's a serious illness, when there is an aging person in an advanced age. So you have to meet some criteria. But here's what it is. It's a medical order. It has to be followed by law. Nobody can decide anything differently. Once that's in the system, it's in the system. And by law, it needs to be followed. And here's the beautiful thing. All of the work that you did thinking about what you would want or not want in your advance directive simply gets transferred to the pulsed form. So you've already done the thought process. You've already thought about your healthcare proxies. You've already thought when I would want treatments and when I would want to be kept comfortable. And by the way, make them as robust as you want. If you want certain music playing, if you want people to bring in dog therapy, if you want to watch the Yankees on repeat, you get whatever you want and you should put it down. It gives your family a roadmap on how to care for you, and you should have exactly what you want. So the POLS form will be a legal document. It needs to have that criteria and it needs to be done by a doctor. It needs to have the criteria that you meet, that you're, advanced in age or have an illness or something, but ask your doctor, and your doctor has to do it. And that makes it a medical order that needs to be followed by law. So that is your lock-in to making sure your wishes are honored. Okay, so here's a little exercise. We want to just identify what steps are needed to complete your advance directive. The two main parts to it are your living will. And this really takes a moment for you to think about. And I'll tell you what the benchmark is. When you're deciding what you would want or not want for advanced care, you want to decide for yourself subjectively what quality of life is to you. And what does that mean? That means when it becomes a part of my journey where I can't do X, Y, and Z, my quality of life is not there. So for me, if I couldn't recognize my loved ones, if I couldn't do things for myself, if I couldn't go walking, I love to walk in nature. It's one of my favorite things. But find out what your benchmarks are, because the benchmark is going to be that time in our journey where we say, instead of going for aggressive trying to reverse something, I want to be kept comfortable with really tight symptom management. First of all, I think that should be part of our journeys throughout life. Number one, it's a big part of palliative care, tight symptom management, which you're going to be seeing more and more of a need as we have these aging demographics for decades. The problem with aging so long is that usually there's physical or cognitive or financial or all the above as we age, sometimes for decades. So when somebody has ailments for years, tight symptom management is the thing that can dramatically change their quality of life. Unfortunately, there's not really the time that practitioners have to diagnose and to really be managing those symptoms. And that's why we need that non-medical doula that is filling in that gap in the eyes and ears. But you want to decide for yourself what quality of life is for you, what you would want and what you would not want for end-of-life care. And then you want to make sure that you think about the two healthcare proxies, as we talked about tonight, that are best for you. And if you don't have anyone, that's okay. We're going to find a way to support you, because you're not alone in that. Again, pick one. Hopefully they're close proximity, aligned with and comfortable with what you're asking, and then pick a second one just in case the first one is lucky enough to be in Hawaii scuba diving. You've got the second. So in conclusion tonight, a healthcare proxy is an essential part of your advance directive. By understanding the importance and clarity around choosing one, you provide direction and comfort to your loved ones, and you ensure that your healthcare wishes are followed and respected. And I want to just remind us that bringing back the sacredness of death brings back the sacredness of life. And together, this is how we change the world. I want to say this to you right now, that when I started to work with the dying, my whole entire life changed, literally that day, because it was no longer that, oh, I have to go to the grocery store, or, oh, I have to go to the gym. Everything took on. I knew that one day this journey is going to change. And I knew that every single day is like one little lifetime. And my whole perception changed for everything. And the fact that death is going to show up and what people were saying at the end of life just taught me everything about life. And so when we talk about the change that this world needs, And we hear about the wisdom from those at the end of life, how there is no death, that we're all connected, that there's no judgment, that everything was meant for learning. If we had that awareness and that we then brought back the fact of every day showing up and choosing to show up in love and non-judgment, not in the ego mind, that changes the world. So through this and through this conversation, it not only will change your individual life, but collectively as well. So I want to thank you so much for being here. And you are the change. When you're showing up like this, you are the change because you can share this information with others and it has a ripple effect. There you have it, everyone. Understanding all about healthcare proxies, how important they are, and how you need to know the truth about them. So thank you so much for being part of Ask a Death Doula. This is the Good Death podcast series. Again, we are fast approaching the launch of the Good Death book. If you haven't already, grab your book with a link below and you get a free ticket to the one-day event, the live masterclass, where we will have a very special guest attending as well. You don't want to miss it. Click the link and I'll see you in class. We'll see you in the next one, everyone.